Hello and welcome. You're watching the Tov Jewish News channel. With me today is in our studio Boaz a publicist and an activist for the Jewish Judea and Samaria movement. Boaz, hello and welcome. Boaz, as a person who knows Judea and Samaria very well and who really understands what's going on in that area, I want you to talk about the so-called, phenomena of settler violence of Jewish people who live in Judea and Samaria committing, as reported, acts of violence against Palestinians. Is that really true?
Yeah,
Is that what really goes on there, or is that just another fake news story, created by media, by leftist media?
this is one of the biggest lies which ever happened here. And we are very experienced with rude lies because the big elephant in the room is the Arab violence, the Palestinian terror, the daily terror of shootings, of Molotov cocktails, of throwing rocks every day, dozens of times, every day. And in the same room, there is an ant, which this is the Jewish violence, ant compared to an elephant. And everybody is talking about the ant. And this ant was not being, would not come to the world without the Arab terror, because this is a very, very small response to the unbelievable amount of Arab terror. So this is the real comparison. And the problem is that the government officials and the military officials and the prime minister, they do nothing in order to explain that the big problem, the giant problem, is the Arab terror in the same area. And why they don't do it? It's very easy to fight this lie. Very easy. If you only willing to talk about the Arab terror and the Arab violence and the Arab crimes and the Arab wilderness in Judea and Samaria. By the way, it's the same in Paris and in London, in Madrid. They have also the same problem. And there you cannot blame any occupation. Only here you have an excuse for this Arab violence, and you can blame the Jews. But in other places in the world, there is no excuse. So you swipe it under the rug, under the carpet, and everything is okay. But here you have Jews to blame, and this is how it goes. So why our leaders are not trying to fight this lie by showing and exposing the huge Arab Palestinian Authority, encouraged by Palestinian Authority, violence and terror, because this will make them to do something against it, because they control the area. And if you do something against the Palestinian Authority, which inciting in the media, in the educational system, everywhere inciting for violence and terror and supporting terror and rewarding terror by big, big salaries for the prisoner, the terrorists who sit in Israeli prisons, and to the families of those who were killed. So this entity, the Palestinian Authority, is educating for terror, praising terror, and rewarding terror. So they are the source of terror. So if you if you show this Arab violence as a problem, you must do something against it. But they don't want to do. They get used to the presence of this negative entity of the Palestinian Authority. And in order not to do anything and to continue to try to hide it, they, they keep silent about this terrible campaign of the so-called settlers' violence. Here is the problem.
Mr. Ayedsi, I want to ask you about the European reaction to the settler violence campaign. So we saw a number of Western countries, United States, Belgium, and if I'm correct, Germany, taking steps against the campaign of settler violence, actually against the reported settlers that committed acts of violence, and banning the entry to those countries to a number of settlers that reportedly committed acts of violence. Why would you say that those European countries go along with that campaign? What is the reason? What is the ideological reason behind that?
Okay, we can tell ourselves a lot of stories, but basically, it is the good old anti-Semitism that the Europeans cannot get rid of it. It flow in their blood circle, and they are financing left organizations who create this lie, and they finance it, and they are the customers of this campaign. This is the material they like to dirty the Jews and to pay for creating this dirt. So this is the circle who feeding this lie, and the purpose is very obvious. They want to weaken the Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria, to make it to delegitimize it, to dehumanize it, and to demonize it, in order to make it weaker, in order to make it easy to remove, in order to make the Israeli presence in Judea and Samaria problematic, and to push the government to the corner by in all the matters of our presence in Judea and Samaria. This is the
Uh,
purpose, and the main motivation comes from anti-Semitism.
do you see the same processes that go on in Judea and Samaria also going on in Gaza? For example, the same amount of violence from the civilian population? And would you say, if you say yes, what steps should Israel take towards the population in Gaza, towards the terrorist supporters? I'm not talking about Hamas themselves, but to the civilian population, in order to get rid of the problem and de-radicalize the population.
Look, the difference between Judea, Samaria, and Gaza is that Gaza was abandoned by Israel. Israel left Gaza in 2005 during the so-called disengagement. We saw how this engagement was disengagement. Yes, we have now a big engagement, and because there is no difference between these two areas, because we started the same. We came to Judea, Samaria, and Gaza in 1967. We made the terrible mistake of bringing this terror gang of the PLO in the beginning of the 90s, and built the Palestinian Authority, which did all what I said before. And this blew up in our faces in the year of 2000, in what is called the Second Intifada, a terrible terror war. We lost 1,500 people during this war, but not in one day like what took place in now 2 months ago, but during a period of 3 years. And then Israel did the opposite in these two areas. Judea and Samaria was actually reoccupied by Israel after the terrible months of March 2002, which we had 130 dead from terror attacks in 1 month, and after a suicide bomber in a hotel during the Seder of Pesach in 2002, Israel entered A areas, which are totally under Palestinian Authority control, and reoccupied it and recovered the intelligence system and recovered the military control. And since then, it's controllable and the security is reasonable. In Gaza, we did the opposite. Instead of taking over again, we left it. We removed the army. We threw out the Jewish communities. There were 21 Jewish communities in Gaza Strip. And we took out the bones from the graves because we knew exactly what would happen if we lived them there. And in Gaza, as you can see, it has developed to maybe the biggest terror fortress in the world, a city, a state, underground state beneath the dense cities. And if you add the education for terror by Hamas and by the Palestinian Authority, it's the same curriculum in Judea and Samaria under the Fatah and Gaza under the Hamas. And so it became a terrible terror land, and it blew up in our faces in Simchat Torah in October 7. And today we are in the middle of a very, very bitter war in order to eliminate it, because we cannot continue live with such a threat. What is the difference? In Judea and Samaria, we are still there. We control the area. The Jewish communities, we have something about 300 Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria and more than 500,000 Jewish residents. And this system dictates the army to maintain a security. And this security can be measured, because if a community is able to live and the people are capable to come and go from their community, it means that the security is good. And the army must protect these communities, and this creating security over the whole area. And the terror, because of such a big Jewish presence, the terror have to hide. And it's a fact that they don't have rockets from Judea and Samaria because of the Jewish presence in this area. And their military capabilities are much weaker, without any comparison, to what they had in Gaza.
Mr. Etzi,
So here is the difference.
If Israel were to disengage, God prevent, if Israel were to disengage from Judea and Samaria, how would the situation look like for Israel?
You know, there was a foreign minister, a minister of foreign affairs in Israel in 1967. He was very, very famous and a big person that days. His name was Abba Evan. After the 6-Day War, he was asked if we are going to give back these territories to the Arabs. He said his answer was, we are not going to return to Auschwitz borders. What is Auschwitz borders? We could guess, but now we know exactly. We returned in 2005 to Auschwitz borders in the Gaza area, and we got a day of Auschwitz there. And now we know exactly what is the meaning of Auschwitz border. If we would have withdrawn from Judea and Samaria, we could have the same situation along this border, but Gaza is in the margin, it's distant area of Israel, not dense with Jewish residents. And Judea and Samaria is located right on the center and surrounding Jerusalem and near the big cities. That Gaza border is something about 65 kilometers length. Judea and Samaria is a minimum of 350 kilometers. This border cannot be controlled. Disengagement from Judea and Samaria means the end of Israel. It's very, very simple. And now everybody can see it. Here is the difference.
Boaz, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you, but we have to end this interview because we ran out of time. Thank you to you and to all of our viewers that saw this interview. Please subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms, on WhatsApp, on Telegram, and also don't forget to drop a follow here on YouTube. Thank you and have a great day.